Hi, I'm Parneen Jaggi. While we were discussing the synopsis and characters of the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison, this is going to be a video about the themes covered in the novel Beloved. As we know, the novel is a popular work of Toni Morrison that highlights the undercurrent of the slavery which has tormented lakhs of people worldwide. And Toni Morrison stands as a representative of this black uh, torment. Now, when we look at the themes covered in the novel, we see that the most important theme highlighted is the slavery and the destruction of identity because of this slavery. So, the novel explores the physical, emotional, and spiritual devastation wrought by slavery. A devastation that continues to haunt those characters who were former slaves even in freedom. And the most dangerous of slavery's effects in its negative impact on the former slave's sense of self, and the novel contains multiple examples of self alienation. Now, for instance, we have this character Paul D. He is so alienated from himself in the novel that at one point he cannot tell whether the screaming he hears is his own or someone else. Slaves were actually told that they were subhuman and they were traded as commodities whose worth could be expressed in dollars. So, consequently, Paul D is a very insecure character about whether he could possibly be a real man, and he frequently wonders about his value as a person. Now, when we look at the protagonist Said, she is also treated as a subhuman. She once walked in on the school teacher giving his pupils a lesson on her animal characteristics. She is also alienated from herself and filled with self loathing. The only thing is that she sees the best part of herself as her children. Yet her children also have a volatile, unstable identities. Denver conflates her identity with Beloved's, and Beloved feels herself actually beginning to physically disintegrate. We even notice that slavery has limited baby Sug's self conception by shattering her family and denying the opportunity to be a true wife, sister, daughter, or a loving mother. So we see that these characters are depressed, they are tired. Baby Sug's fatigue is spiritual, while Paul D's fatigue is emotional, and they face these self defeating strategies throughout to protect themselves from the emotional pain they are forced to endure. Now, Toni Morrison here also suggests that our nation's identity, like the novel's characters, must be healed. America's future depends on its understanding of the past, just as we see this character Said, who must come to terms with her past because before she can secure a future with Denver or Paul D. Before we can address slavery's legacy in the contemporary problems of racial discrimination and discord, we must confront the dark and hidden corners of our history. So, crucially, in Beloved, we learn about the history and legacy of slavery not from the school teachers or even from Bodwin's point of view, but rather from the point of view of Said, Paul D, Stampede, and Baby Suggs. So Morrison writes history with the voices of a people historically denied the power of language. And Beloved recuperates a history that had been lost either due to willed forgetfulness or due to forced silence. The next theme we could look into is the importance of community solidarity. Beloved demonstrates the extent to which individuals need the support of their communities in order to survive. Said first begins to develop her sense of self during her 28 days of freedom when she becomes a part of the Cincinnati community. Similarly, in the novel, we have Denver, who discovers herself and grows up when she leaves 124 and becomes part of the society. Paul D and his fellow prison inmates in Georgia prove able to escape only by working together as a team, as a community. They are literally chained to one another, and Paul D recalls that if one is lost, all lost. Lastly, it's the community that saves Seed from mistakenly killing Mr. Bodwin and casting the shadow of another sin across her and her family's life. Then, Cincinnati's black community plays a pivotal role in the events of 124. The community's failure to alert Seed to school teachers' approach implicates it in the death of Seed's daughter. Baby Suggs feels the slight as a grave betrayal from which she will never recover. So, at the end of the novel, the black community makes up for its past misbehavior by gathering at 124 to collectively exorcise Beloved. And by driving Beloved away, the community secures Seeds and its own release from the past. Now, another important theme to highlight here would be the powers and limits of language. When Sixo, this another slave at this home, sweet home, he turns school teacher's reasoning around to justify having broken the rules. School teacher whips him to demonstrate that definitions belong to the definers and not to the defined. The slaves eventually come to realize the illegitimacy of many of the white definitions. So here they could see the power of language. For example, Mr. Garner claims to have allowed his slaves to live as real men, but Paul D questions just how manly they actually are. So too does Paul D finally come to realize with bitter irony the fallacy of the name Sweet Home. Although Sixo eventually reacts to the hypocrisy of the rhetoric of slavery by abandoning English altogether, other characters use English to redefine the world on their own terms. For example, Baby Suggs and Stampede rename themselves. Beloved may be read as Morrison's effort to transform those who have always been defined into the definers. While slaves, the characters manipulate language and transcend its standards limit. Their command of language allows them to adjust its meaning and to make themselves indecipherable to the white slave owners who watch them. For example, Paul D and the Georgia prison inmates sing together about their dreams and memories. Now, last but not the least, it is imperative and important to look at the title of the novel. The title actually alludes to what is ultimately the product of a linguistic misunderstanding. At her daughter's funeral, Seed interpreted the minister's address to the dearly beloved as referring to the dead rather than the living. All literature is indebted to this slippery, shifting quality of language. The power of metaphor, simile, metonymy, irony, and wordplay all result from the ability of words to attach and detach themselves from various possible meanings. So, this was a brief analysis of what could be extracted from the novel in terms of its themes and symbol when we look at the title of the novel. So we're going to take up symbolism in detail in the next video. Thank you for now.